What's up, everybody? I'm so glad that you are here across all of our campuses. It's ya boy, Brandon. So good to be with you. I am excited to be here because we're jumping into a brand new teaching series called DTR, Define the Relationship. In this series, we're going to spend some time talking about the most important foundational, formational relationships in your life. I'm talking about the people who influence your character, the people who influence your personality, and most importantly, the people who can push you closer to Jesus. We really believe that the way we define our relationships will determine the health of our relationships. So tonight we're getting it all kicked off by talking about how we are relating to parents. Talking about mom and dad tonight, okay? How we relate to our parents, because your parents are some of the most formational relationships in your life, meaning that the way you relate to your parents will influence and inform how you relate to just about everyone else around you. And the simple reason for that important relationship is because they came first, okay? They were the first ones to teach us so many things in our life: how to walk, how to talk, whether we cheer for the Vikings or for any other team, whether we like coffee or whether we like tea, whether we're cat people or dog people. They teach us so many things about who we are in the first few years of our life. And our connection to our parents begins when we're born. And the thing is, like, whatever they teach us is just kind of normal. It's just kind of what we grow up with. It's our whole world that surrounds us. Like, do you remember the first time you went over to a friend's house, or you maybe spent the night at a friend's house and you, for the first time, realized that not every family lives the way that your family lives? Like, yo, that hit me hard, okay? I remember I was a young kid. I went over to my friend John's house. He was a neighborhood friend, and I was there to hang out for the day. And at first, everything was normal. Like, I met his parents, and they were super nice. And then we went into his backyard and played for a long time, and then it was time for dinner. And so I walked in, and his parents gave me a plate of food. Now, in my house, we never, and I mean never, ate food at the dinner room table. We just never did. I mean, we had a dining room table, but like, it was super special occasions, like Christmas maybe, if that. I mean, it was just like, we just never went around it. In fact, it was so foreign to me that I felt kind of weird and awkward sitting at a table eating my food, especially dinner. And so when John's parents gave me this plate of food, I grabbed it politely, and then I went into the living room, sat on the floor, and began to stuff my face. And I'm like halfway through my meal at this point, and I realize I am all alone eating. And I turn around, and there's John's family just like staring at me and looking at me like I'm like some cave person who's like time traveled into the future where people eat food on tables. And the worst thing is they didn't say anything to me. They didn't say like, hey, don't do that. Hey, come over. Like, they just waited for me to eat my food. And then I had to get up awkwardly and go into the dining room, sit at the table, and eat my food. I went home that night and I was like, Mom, do you know that people eat dinner at their dining room tables like on a Tuesday? Like on a random day? And she was like, yeah, that's how it works. But the reason it was so odd for me is because that's not how my parents did things. That's not how my family worked. And it was new territory for me. My relationship with my parents is what I compared all of my other relationships to. My point is that the way you relate to your parents, it will influence and it will inform your current and future relationships. And so tonight, what I want to do is I want to give you 2 ways to help you relate to your parents so that your current and future relationships can be better. The first way I want to talk about is to let love lead. When it comes to relating to our parents, a good place to begin is to learn how to let love lead, because the first step towards understanding how to relate to our parents is to realize that they are not perfect. And neither are you. Like, some of you were like, yep, they're not perfect. I know that for sure, but neither are you. So many of us have to understand that most of the time, our parents are trying to do the very best with what they have to raise us right. Like, I've never met a mom or a dad who was like, yo, my main goal is to like screw my kids up and then peace when they're 18. Like, I've never met those parents. Like, I've been a dad for like just about 4 years. And I'm like already like, yo, are my kids screwed up? Like, did I miss it? I hope not. Like, I really want to do a good job at this thing. But just like you and me, our parents want to do the best with what They have, but because of our unique relationship to our parents, it's very vulnerable. It's really easy to get off. Sometimes all they have to do is say one word with one tone of voice, and suddenly we get anxious. Suddenly we get worried. Suddenly we feel like there's this strain on our relationship, and when things aren't right with our parents, we get to, everything else seems to feel disorganized. Everything else feels like it's out of whack. It begins to feel heavy, like we're carrying the weight of the world. I kind of like stumbled across this recently. I was playing with my daughter, Olive. We have a picture of her right here. This is her. She's the best. I love her so much. She's so awesome. We love hanging out. We love playing games. One of the games that we play is she'll stand on the couch in my living room, and we will toss an imaginary ball back and forth. So like I've got it, and then she's got it, and then I've got it, and she's got it. It's adorable. Okay, it's awesome. But one night I was like, we got to spice this game up because, you know, your boy gets bored after a while. Like there's nothing there. It's just, you know, whatever. So I'm like, Olive, you should jump up and down on the couch. So she jumps up and down on the couch, and I'm like, okay, Olive, we should go back and forth really fast. So I had it. It was great. And then I was like, oh, I have this idea. So she threw it to me, and I pretended like it was real heavy. You know what I mean? So she threw it to me, and I was like, oh, it's so heavy. And then I threw it back to her, and in her 3-year-old brain, she panicked. Because she was like, if that thing is too heavy for my dad, what do I do? So she's mid-jump on the couch. She tries to like dodge. There's nothing there. She's dodging this imaginary thing. She loses her footing and face plants on the ground. She's okay, all right? She's a little scared, but she made it all right. But man, isn't that sometimes how it feels when we're trying to relate to our parents? Man, they say one thing to us. They step into our room and they take one look at us, and suddenly it feels like we've got the weight of the world on our shoulders. We feel awkward and lame. We can't find the words to speak their language, and things just feel off and heavy and confusing. Man, when we are in those moments, the best thing we can do, truly, I really believe this, the best thing we can do is to learn to lead with love. And the best example I can think of to really explain this to you comes from a letter in the New Testament of the Bible written by a guy named Peter. And Peter was one of Jesus' closest friends and closest followers. And Peter was writing to a group of people who felt like they were carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. And he was giving them advice all through these letters. One of the bits of advice he gives them is this, that above all, love each other deeply, because love covers a multitude of sins. And then he goes and he says, offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. Above all, love comes first. Love is that motion and that action where you strive to see things from your parents' perspective. Love is when you try to understand your parents instead of demanding that they see things your way every single time. Love is when you realize that you are not perfect, neither are they, and that is okay. Because the goal here is not perfection. We shouldn't expect it of them, and they shouldn't expect it of us. The goal here is love. And notice that Peter kind of tells us how to live out this love. He says, offer hospitality to one another without grumbling, which is basically another way of saying learn how to live in the same household together without wanting to kill each other all the time. And the best way to learn to live with your parents is to learn how to love your parents. And listen, I'm not assuming that this is going to be always easy, that you will always agree with each other. I'm not saying that. But when you let love lead by thinking the best of your parents, by seeking to see things from their perspective, by trying your best to live well with them, you are taking a step in the right direction to begin to learn how to really relate to your parents and invite them to relate to you. Sometimes the best thing we can do is learn how to listen to them. So what would it look like for you to love your parents. Maybe it would be making a decision to think the best of them, especially when they get on your nerves. Maybe it's following through on the responsibilities they've given you, or maybe it's doing your very best to listen to what they have to say. Which leads me to the second way to learn to really relate to your parents. It's this: listen for long life. Listen for long life. Some of you might be familiar with the 10 Commandments. Others of you might not be. That's okay. The 10 Commandments are basically these 10 guidelines that God gave to the people that were following him to show them how to live the best life possible. But in all those commandments, in all 10, there's only one that God attaches a promise to, a guarantee to. And this is what he says. The commandment is, honor your father and mother. That's the commandment, as the Lord your God has commanded you. And the promise is this: so that you may live long and that it may go well with you in the land the Lord your God is giving to you. Now, this word honor is one that we don't typically use, maybe like in movies, but probably not going around honoring or saying the word honor very often. But another comparable word to honor is the word listen. And in fact, I think it gets closer to what God is commanding here. He's saying, listen to your mother and father. And the kind of listening that God is talking about is not just gathering information. It's noticing. It's paying attention to. It's putting into practice what you see. And the promise that God makes is that if we can pay attention to our parents like this, we will learn valuable lessons that will set us up in our life and in our future. The point this commandment is trying to make is that your parents have something to teach you. And God is asking you to honor that, to listen to that. Now, sometimes these life lessons, they don't come from long speeches after you've done something wrong. Sometimes they do. But a lot of the time it comes from noticing. It comes from watching your parents and how they live. Watching how they react to failures and success. Watching and paying attention and empathizing with their challenges, their difficulties, finding the good in them as often as you get annoyed by them. And sometimes it means avoiding their mistakes. Now, some of you have seen maybe more mistakes in your parents than success. Some of you, like me, are from divorced or broken homes. Some of you might even feel like your parents aren't worthy of honor. But let me tell you something. Honoring someone is about acknowledging that their life has something for you to learn. And no matter who is in your life, you can learn from them. I really believe that. No matter who is in your life, you can learn from them. Some of you have parents, probably most of you have parents that are really working one way or another. They are working and trying their best to raise you, to equip you, to encourage you, to understand you. But sometimes the truth is they need you. They need you to meet them halfway. They need you to honor their attempts to understand you, which basically means you just got to tell them how TikTok works. Like, they don't get it. They just don't get it. And they might not get it for a long time. You have to say it over and over again, but you just might have to. Do it. That is honestly a way to honor your parents. That means taking them seriously when they want to know about your day at school or what happens at church on a Wednesday night. To actually tell them, to have a response for them. And sometimes honoring your parents is simply taking the time to talk to them and really listen to what they have to say to you and about your life. When you listen to your parents, you honor them. And the more you honor your parents, the longer and fuller your life will feel. So let me ask you, how do you need to honor your parents? What does that look like for you? I mean, what even comes to mind when I say that for you? Because for some of you, it might mean that you got to just pay more attention to how your parents are currently supporting you, how they're providing for you. For some of you, maybe it means you need to listen to their advice about who you're dating or about what friends are in your life, and assume that they're not trying to ruin your life, but they might be trying to save your life. that they might have experience that you don't know anything about quite yet, to trust them. See, when you listen to your parents, you honor them. It can be easy to do, but at the same time, loving and listening to your parents is not always easy. I get that. I get that it can be challenging. I get that it can be confusing. I get that it can be awkward. Because it means that it takes practice. We'll have to choose to love our parents, even when they annoy us. We'll have to choose to listen to them, even when we disagree with them. And the thing we have to remember is that we all, you and I, have a role to play in the relationship that we have with our parents. And it really begins by learning how to love them for who they are, acknowledging that they're not perfect, and practicing listening to them, taking them seriously when they try to speak into our lives, trusting them. Now look, for some of you, I know that I've talked to many of you. You have difficult and complex and challenging relationships with your parents. And I am not minimizing that in the least. That's really hard. And I get that. I truly do. But my encouragement to you, my encouragement to all of us, is that we would first learn to love and listen to God our Father. Because here's the thing, God is the great example of what a father should look like. In fact, he's a great example of what we all should aspire to look like. His love for us is perfect, it is unending. His support in us never fails, no matter how we react to him or against him. And maybe most of all, he is there to comfort us when life is difficult, when we face challenges with our parents. And he invites us to learn how to love our parents and listen to them out of the overflow of our love and loyalty to him. What I want to leave you with is just a little section of a longer verse in the New Testament in 2 Corinthians, written by a guy named Paul, to just show you what kind of God he is, to show you how we can trust him. Because it says this: praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion, the God of all comfort, who comforts us in our troubles, in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. Some of you have an opportunity to be comfort to your parents. Some of you need the comfort that God provides to you. My encouragement to you is that as you learn to relate to your parents, let love lead the way. And along the way, learn to listen, learn to notice, learn to pay attention, because you will find valuable lessons for how to live your life in your current and future relationships. All right, Rev, at all campuses, let's pray together. Jesus, God, I pray for every student in this place and every student across the Twin Cities as they navigate their relationship with their parents. Lord, I pray that loyalty to their parents would never, ever be considered lame. It would never, ever be considered something to look down on, but God, it would be something to honor, something to listen to. I pray for my friends tonight that are having difficult and challenging times with their parents, Lord, that you would lead the way. They would find comfort in you. And for students in here that felt a challenge to relate differently to their parents, God, that they would follow through tonight and the rest of this week and the rest of their lives. God, we ask that you would redeem and make right all of our relationships. And most importantly, God, that our relationship with you would be made right. So God, we trust you and we love you. In Christ's name, amen. All right, Rev, love you a lot. See you later.